Chapter 4. Monday came and Johnny and Verna went off to school. Miss Robin had left early to get to the schoolroom swept out and tidied for class. Verna knew I was sorry to be left behind. She promised she would tell me all about the first day of school. When she got home, I was waiting for her. Carl Kleino was throwing spitballs at the little kids, Verna said. Miss Robin said if he was going to act like a baby, he would have to sit with the kindergarten and first grade. Carl's face was red as a beet. And you know what? Miss Robin told the class that before long there might be a new pupil in the school. I think she meant you. After dinner that night, while Miss Robin was helping Mama with the dishes, she said real nicely, "I've only got 12 students, Mrs. Thomas. I'd have plenty of time to give Hannah some lessons if you'd let her come to school." I held my breath and crossed my fingers. "No point to it," Mama said. Papa was sitting at the kitchen table. I smelled the kerosene lamp and heard his pencil scratch. I guess he was adding up the bills and figuring out the ones he could pay. There had been almost no rain during the summer. Half of our crops had dried up. He said to Miss Robin, "You won't get the missus to let Hannah go to school. She likes having a young one around the house. It looks as if Hannah is going to stay her baby no matter how old Hannah gets to be. You see a cow like that sometimes won't let go of her calf." Mama flew out at Papa. "Pa, that isn't so." Miss Robin said, "I'm sure Mrs. Thomas wouldn't stand in the way of giving Hannah an education." "Well, you seem to know more than I do," Mama said. "I guess Hannah can do what she wants, but she's not going to like school when she finds out it'll be way over her head." "And I can't pay for any books," Papa said. The next morning, I was the first one up. I climbed out of bed without waking Verna and put on my clothes. I crept down the stairs to the kitchen and pumped some water to wash my face and hands. To please Mama, I set the table for breakfast. I made sure I had the forks on the left and the knives and the spoons on the right. When Mama came down, she didn't say anything. But she didn't say I couldn't go to school. Miss Robin didn't say anything either. I guess she thought now that she had her way, it was best to keep quiet. She just thanked Mama for the breakfast and started off for school. As she went out the door, she put her hand on my shoulder and gave it a squeeze. When it was time for Verna and Johnny and me to go, I went over to hug Mama. She pushed me away and handed the three of us our jugs of water. There was no well at the school, so we had to bring our own water to drink and to wash our slates. On the way to school, Verna held my hand. I thought we would never get there. Finally, I heard the voices of the other children. Miss Robin came out to meet me. "Hannah," she said, "we're so happy to have you in the school." But she didn't let me sit with Verna. She made me go up in the front and sit with Johnny and the other little children. I remembered how Verna had said it was a punishment when Carl had to sit there. I listened to all the voices and tried to make out who they belonged to. There was an arithmetic lesson that didn't make any sense to me. There was some reading that I couldn't do. I began to wonder why I was there. When it was time for recess, I started to walk out of the school, feeling my way by holding onto the desks. As I got to the back of the room, I heard Carl say, "You sure can tell Hannah Thomas can't see in the mirror, or she wouldn't look like a rag bag with haystack for hair." I was so mad I picked up a book from one of the desks and threw it in the direction of Carl's voice. I heard him cry out. Then someone stuck something in front of my foot, and I tripped and fell on my face in the aisle. Miss Robin and Verna ran to help me up. "Carl Kleino," Miss Robin said. Her voice was sharp and cold like icicles. "I saw you trip, Hannah. Go up in the front of the room and stand by my desk. Your parents are going to hear about this. Hannah, are you hurt?" I shook my head. You go out with the other children, and I'll come out in a minute. I want a word with Carl." Verna led me outside. She tried to comfort me by telling me how Carl was always getting into trouble. "I don't think he likes being the oldest one in the school," she said. After a while, one of Verna's girlfriends called to her to come and jump rope. "I'll just take one turn," Verna said, and ran off. I was just standing there by myself. I thought about how I hadn't been able to do any lessons and how no one talked to me. I wished I was there with Mama. Suddenly, the one thing that seemed important was to get back home. By going from tree to tree, I felt my way down the path that led from the schoolyard to the road. Because I was moving through the trees, no one noticed me. When I reached the road, I was unsure about which way I should turn. I decided any way was better than staying at school. I had been there all morning, and I hadn't learned anything. Miss Robin had hardly spoken to me. Under my feet, I felt the sandy road with its wagon ruts. At first, I began to run along the road. Then I thought someone might see me, so I turned into the woods. There was no sun in the woods, and I hadn't taken my sweater. I began to shiver. Everything felt strange and unfriendly. Blackberry briars scratched my arms and snagged my hair. Branches slapped at me and tore my skirt. Every direction I turned seemed to lead me into more trouble. The ground gave way and slipped out from under me. I gave up, sinking down to my knees. At first, I was too stubborn to call for help. Then, knowing I was lost, I cried out. There was no answer. I was sorry I had ever left my house, or my mother watched over me. Once Johnny had caught a field mouse and put it into a little box to keep it safe from owls and foxes. I thought at the time, even with the danger of owls and foxes, I would rather be free than live shut up in a box. Now I wanted to be shut up in the safe box of my house. I sat there on the ground, hugging myself to keep warm. I could smell the pine trees and hear the scuffle and scratch of the squirrels running along the ground. I thought of getting up and trying to find my way, but I was afraid I would lose myself deeper in the woods and no one would ever find me. It seemed like I had been sitting there shivering for hours when I heard Papa calling to me. I called back. At first he didn't hear me. "Papa," I called, "here I am. Take me home. I want to go home." Papa scooped me up and carried me to the wagon. "No need to cry, Hannah," he said. "You're all right now. We'll have you home in no time." Mama was at the door to meet us. "She might have fallen into the lake," Mama said. "That's what comes of letting her do a foolish thing like going to school. Her place is right here with me."